Heading into the NFL draft, what is Brandon Beane's comfort level with his own roster? Plus, does Trey White's rehab and Jordan Poyer's contract impact the team's decision-making? And is the salary cap a myth? All that's coming up on this week's edition of the Buffalo Plus podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Buffalo Plus and Connors Ferris. Welcome to the podcast. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. Before we jump in, please be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. We're getting ready for the draft coming up on Thursday. I can't believe it's a week away. Mike, Dan, let's talk about where we're at. The Bills just had voluntary workouts. Everyone there except for Jordan Poyer, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, Von Miller, all talking. Mike, what do you think Beane's comfort level is with this roster as we get set for the first round of the draft coming up?
Yeah, well, a couple of things on that. As far as the voluntary workouts, I don't necessarily think, they don't take or they don't express the full roster of who's there, who's not there. But anybody else who's not there, I don't think is a contract issue. It could be logistical. It could be guys rehabbing, whatever it happens to be. So obviously the Poyer thing is just what is different. And then take that then into the idea of the comfort level with the roster. And Dan, I thought it was kind of fascinating as we, at least the collective, we in the media, think we have it figured out what they want to do. You're good here, you're good there. Beane sort of shot a hole in that right away when he was asked about comfort level with position groups on his roster. I think he realizes they need some help.
Yeah, the only position group he said he felt comfortable with was at quarterback. Yeah. He said he pretty much felt like he, felt uncomfortable or not comfortable. Can't remember the exact terminology, but that he was uncomfortable with a lot of the positions on the roster. That's why he's always going to look to add in there. So, yeah, I think Poyer not being there, we talked about it on a previous when Mike and I were up there yesterday as we record this on Thursday. The Poyer thing is a little bit different. Poyer is making it public, which is his right play. And again, you're seeing massive contracts being handed out. Yeah. Jordan Poyer is the 17th highest paid safety. And he's right. He deserves more money. I don't disagree. It's the same way we said when Stephon Diggs wanted a new contract. And we said, yeah, he deserves it. He's outplayed his contract. It comes down to the point where what do the Bills think they need to do? Obviously, he was asked, Beane was asked a couple of different times about where he thinks they are at the cornerback position, because it seems like for a mock draft of the first round, nobody has a consensus of really anything. This year just really seems like a crapshoot because there aren't the star quarterbacks. There don't seem to be that star left tackles, as Beane said, that you can kind of peg in where this team's taking this guy and so on and so forth. Beane kind of said that, he was uncomfortable at wide receiver, and they have brought in some veterans and they are looking at veterans at cornerback. But he also gave a shout out to my boy. I think we need some credit for Dane Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it this way, Jenna. It's not about those positions. We know they need help in those two positions. I'm talking about the entire roster here. I think people just think, well, they're set on the D line. They're set at linebacker. They're set when I mean set, because fans and sometimes in the media, we focus on the very immediate one guy. You've got 21 starters. You need another one. Look, that's not how you draft in the NFL. No matter how much we want to say, look, I'll say this. They could sign Jordan Poyer to a new deal, right? A revamped deal, get him some more money, and still need and want to draft a safety, because as great as those two have been, they ain't getting any younger. And there's always the possibility of injury, and you have to try to find those guys. I think some position groups flare up more. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right now, corner, and I'm not even talking about Dane Jackson. Shoot, Dane Jackson is a rock right now when you look at the cornerback position. Yeah. I mean, come on. This is what I wanted to get into with Trey. I'm listening to both McDermott and Beane yesterday. I'm not saying they were alarmists about Trey, but it's not like on schedule, ready to go. He's Trey. Like, it's hard to come back from that injury. Not everybody comes back just as quickly as possible. So, Dan, I look at it and go, Dane Jackson, great. Now, Jenna, now what? Now what? Where else are you at corner if Tre's not going to be Tre, at least at the start of the year, Jenna?
I completely agree. There's so many things you touched on. One, I want to also go back to Dan patting himself on the back about Dane Jackson. I just have to say that that is broadcasting 101. No, I mean, I think every year you hear Brandon Beane, as his rosters continue to grow, say, we're going to take the best guy available. And sometimes you're like, okay, yeah, all right, that doesn't really seem like the case. But I feel like this year, yes, cornerback 100% is something that jumps off the page. You're like, they need to address that. You could talk about wide receiver. But I mean, Mike, we were even talking in the sports office. What about a linebacker? What about there's really those positions. We talked about safety. I mean, you were the one that said last week, even, what could the Bills do there? Could they dip in? Because this team is so talented and their roster is great, but also at the same point, you have guys coming up on contracts. What's the situation going to be like with Jordan Poyer? How will Tre White be? And Dan, you mocked me when I said that coming off an ACL injury is tough. You said it's not 1980 anymore and all this stuff, but listening to what Beane and McDermott had to say.
Hold on. I believe Dan, what did Dan compare it to?
Getting an oil change.
Yeah. Here's the thing that's challenging about going through an injury. You can do all the right stuff. And I truly believe that Tre White is doing all those things. I know he's in the gym. I know he's working hard. We know he's proper nutrition, stretching, all those things. But it's how your body responds. And you can do everything opportunistic that you can. But that is not up to you at a certain degree. So that is the challenging piece. And I firmly believe that, Tre White is trying to do everything right.
Yep.
But at the same point, to hear the way McDermott and Beane talked about him, I think everyone's just assuming, oh, Tre White will be back. He'll be Tre White. It's an injury that can take time to come back from.
Yeah.
And that's something when you look at that, you say, ooh, that now shoots up the board of something even more that you're like, they need to address. Beane did say too, there are not 32 first round grades out there. So there's also that as well. I don't know in terms of what his board would look like, but I mean, Dan, it's him hearing Beane and McDermott say that. I was like, that's interesting.
Nah, that not even an alarm bell, not even one to sit there and say like, yeah, I don't think they're going to come out and like put pressure on Tre to say like, yeah, he's going to be back to his old self by week 1. But there was no thing of saying he had a setback. There's like, yeah, they're going to be cautious with anybody.
Say that though,
right? But there's no there. To me, there was just guarded optimism of saying like, yeah, like we know it's going to take some time, and we don't expect him to be all pro immediately. But I didn't sense anything. That's
exactly what I'm saying. Why don't you believe that? You're literally saying what I'm saying,
right? But you're taking it as like, oh, he's like, I just think that nothing that he said indicated that Tre White wasn't going to be ready to play on week 1 or anything.
Right. So here's
ready to play, but not be
Tre White
pro corner.
Hey, Jenna, when I heard that yesterday, that's what I thought.
That scared me
because there are guys who maybe when we say not to come back, like we're not talking about that you have to blow up the board and we got to draft corners in the first 3 rounds. Like I'm not saying that's the case, but you need corners on the field. Levi was a guy that you could depend on in this sense. You wanted to upgrade from him, but you depend on him. And now you've got Dane Jackson, who has not been in that role. But you could also be Tre White. Everybody loves Tre. I think he'll get back to that. Certainly that's the hope, that he gets back to being Tre. But then there's the other part you got to say. Tre White's also been on the field. I don't know what his percentage of snaps has been, but it's got to be close to 100, right? He's always on the field. That might be an issue too. Now, that all being said, to Dan's point, it doesn't necessarily mean you got to pick the guy in the first round.
Correct.
Because I think they're going to be in the market for veterans, no doubt. At least one coming in. I believe Von Miller is trying to recruit Joe Hayden, though Beane hadn't heard anything on that. So you do that. But at some point, you sit there and say to yourself, that is a roster position. because you put 4 sometimes corners on the field at a time.
Yeah.
They don't have that right now, Dan.
I think going off of that too, like Dan, I hope that I am wrong. I hope that Trey White for Bills fans comes back in is seamless and all of those things. I just think you have to be aware of where you're at. And like Mike said, Trey White, when he's on the field, is on the field constantly. You need depth behind him. And I'm not saying it's a fire sale. You just go after every corner that you can. See, this is so interesting because this is a look inside Dan's mind where like I live in the middle and Dan is on either end. Like it's all or nothing where like I like to populate like kind of you can be concerned, but like, reasonable at the same point.
I understand the concern. I'm not saying I haven't been concerned or understand it. I just didn't take any of Beane's comments, any of McDermott's comments as any reason to be concerned at all. What Beane and McDermott said, there are a few things that you can never take seriously with what they're saying. And one of those is injuries with McDermott. A guy could break his leg and McDermott would be like, well, we'll see how he does tomorrow. And like, what are you going to say? Like, oh, he's going to come back. No, that's just what their lingo is. So when they talk about where Trey is or anything like that, I don't listen to any of it because to me, it's like, it's just white noise. Like they're just talking. I don't really put much stock in it as much as you did. That's fine that you can have it. But like, I didn't expect him to say Trey's ahead of schedule. Like he's running sprints. I also didn't expect them to say like Trey is way behind. We're screwed. Like what he said was, there's always some, you look at what Harrison Phillips came back. Like his first year back, he wasn't great. And then he, as we know, like, I mean, he's another 180 pounds heavier than Trey White. But I'm just saying like things happen. What do you think? 180? No,
180.
That's a lot.
180 means
Trey's probably 2 and Harrison's 3. So 100 pounds heavier. I'm just saying. There's the narratives that come out are for a reason with a lot of these injuries, especially ACLs or pitchers with Tommy John surgery or anything like that. They come out through agents. Like I said, it's the same reason why Jameson Williams is posting videos about how he's so great. It's like, okay, like, so now what? Now somebody's going to take Jameson Williams in the top 10 because they saw him jog ahead of schedule?
You're right about that.
Thank you. Ta-da! Ta-da! Dan's right.
Oh my God.
No, you're right about that. There is a reason. There is a reason to, if you're a draft pick, like you want to get picked as high as you can, you want to show all that. But teams have also then can make that calculated decision. That guy's not on their roster. If you are the Bills, you have to say to yourself, what's our realistic plan? I know it's only April. Okay. But the training staff, they've dealt with players coming back from this. I guess what I'm saying too is Trey's been an outstanding player. He's going into his sixth year, right? With the Bills. 17,
all
18,
with McDermott,
19,
right?
20, 21, he'll be 22.
Yeah,
he was McDermott's pick, really not be. Oh, excuse me. He was Doug Whaley's pick. Yeah. Okay. So he was that pick and he's been that guy. And look, he's going to be back, but I just think even in general, let's start with this. You let Levi go. He was your starter. You had Dane on the roster. You got to replace Dane, even if Dane Jackson becomes the starter. Like they need that, and they need perfect time in terms of how you do the money and the value of it to get the other number one corner, the potential number one corner, because Trey's going into year 6, injury or not. So I think that position is absolutely one of need, and I think it will get addressed. But Jenna, if you're picking a guy, what are they, 50, what is it, 55 in the second round? 50?
I think it's 52.
Yeah, I get the numbers. In the 50s.
Is AJ Epinessa's pick.
If you're picking that guy, or, maybe you're making a move, because the way corners are going to go in this first round, it could be really early. Then addressing it in the second round is way more than this team has done at any point except Trey White. Since Trey, it's been patchwork.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 1,000%. I will say too, like we talk about the comfort level of being with this roster. I think it's a lot more uncomfortable than people realize because of the way the NFL works and because of always kind of having to think ahead. And they've had substantial playmakers on their team. And I think when you think of that and you think of the possibility of these guys getting older, when I talk about that, I mean Poyer, Hyde, situations like that. What do you do at linebacker? I think that there's a lot more in play for this team early on in the draft. Do I say that they address that, round one? No, but I think maybe we could have picks at linebacker higher than maybe we're originally expecting and things like that.
I think this is also a time, especially right now, as we record this, the draft is a week away. This is a time of some people overreacting and some people wearing rose-colored sunglasses. So, like, especially in some positions where it's like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this team is really high on this guy, or this team's doing this, or this team that. And like, you kind of got to sift through the bullshit. And like a lot of this stuff that gets out for a reason. And we know that what comes out of Buffalo is very calculated, if anything. And I don't know why Mike's laughing.
I'm laughing because that's what Jenna and I do all the time.
What, with me?
Sorry, no. I just mean that it's first of all, I don't think Beane is a real way over the top BS. I just don't think he is. I think if you go back and listen to what he says, there's clues in there to what he's thinking all the time. And I don't think he's like,
I think he's guarded though too.
Yeah.
What did we always said? What did we always say? He tells you enough that we go, that was really good. And then you go back and listen to it and you're like, there's really nothing there.
They're picking 25th. They're not controlling the draft. They're sitting there. 100%. But at any point,
the draft
he could make a move. And Jenna, you made the point about 32 first round grades. He doesn't have it. I would say most years he doesn't have 32 first round grades.
That's what he said. And the other thing that was interesting the other thing that was interesting about what Beane said, and this goes to Mike, to your point, where it's like Beane was asked if because of where the team is and the success of where they're at, would he think about trading future year picks to move up in this year's draft to make that all-in move? And Beane was very defiant, saying that he will never do anything to go all in. He goes, that's not how he is. I won't do it. Every year I'm going to try and build this long-term and think about the big picture, which I think is kind of a lie, because I think that if you were to say, and you could use next year's first round pick on somebody to move up, to get the guy that you really want, then I feel like next year when you enter in the draft process, you just reshuffle your deck and you play with the cards that you're dealt. Like, I don't think that means you automatically will say that. I don't think that means that next year, if they don't have a first round pick entering it, that we'll be sitting here going, got to pick, right? So you guys are just like sitting on your hands, right? And it's like, he'll be like, no, we'll be looking to get in, and like, because you reset every year. So like,
I think that's fair. Yeah.
You're right. They went all in that way because they did trade a number one pick to get Diggs. Not all in, but that's not necessarily like all in. They gave up a one. I guess in his mind, I think the point he was trying to make was
big picture.
Well, big picture in the NFL is 3 years, 4 years. Like he knows right now this group can compete for the Super Bowl. It's not like, oh my God. Hey, look, if you're the Rams, Matthew Stafford comes in. He is a guy who's been around the block a little bit. He's not a young quarterback. They had some other guys that have had some miles on them, even Von Miller that they made the deal for. Like, that kind of made sense in that way. Josh Allen's in his 20s. I'm not saying you just dismiss a year. I'm saying is you believe you're going to be competing for this for a while. So, trading a one is not like this craziest thing in the world to do. But it does, I think, if the mindset is, we got to do it now, like this is the year to do it. That part, he pushed back from that part of it.
I also think it's different trading a future first round pick when you have your quarterback.
Yes.
Because first round picks, like we saw what the Eagles are doing, right, Mike? The Eagles are getting first round picks for next year because they're going to be good quarterbacks coming out in that class. Beane doesn't really ever need to, for any reason, think about maneuvering up to a top 10 spot to draft another quarterback, like possibly in his 10 year in Buffalo. Like, so where he's like, oh, I'll never, I don't think like that. It's like, dude, if the call came and you got a chance to give up a one to get a Kyle Hamilton or somebody like that you thought would be another piece, you can't sit there and say like, oh, well, next year we're screwed. It's like, no, you just redo next year. You just rehandle the cards that you're dealt next year. And he'll probably try and find some way to move up and find a guy if he needs to. So that's my thought.
I like the Kyle. I like the Kyle Hamilton move.
He's
I want
such a
that on the record.
McDermott guy.
You were so early on him, and then everybody then it became mainstream. Mike, you were ahead of the curve.
You were a hipster.
Well, you know what it was? What got me going here a little bit? I've been called a hipster multiple times. No, that's about I need a hip. I'm not sure. It was one of those two things. But the idea behind him is I looked at him and thought the volatility at the top of this draft and the position value on a guy like Kyle Hamilton could push him out of the top 10. Then he becomes in play. If you're really thinking about that, like if you're saying, if he drops down to this certain point, do I make a play for him? Because he could get on, even if you you wouldn't see, if you did that, I don't think you're signing Poyer to any other deal.
Yeah.
Like
agreed.
That's the point where like, you're not putting, there's some other corners that they could take that, safeties that they could take that I think could play alongside, play corner, play some safety. The thing I like about Hamilton is he can play in the box. He's not, somebody was telling me about he doesn't have speed. They don't care about that with the safeties.
Watch the film.
He's game. Yeah. He's game quick. He's smart. Micah Hyde ran a 4.6 or what? I shouldn't say that, Micah. Sorry. He's listening, right? He always listens.
Big Buffalo Plus guy.
4.5, I think he ran. Like he does not, but he always gets there.
Yep.
Ask the New England Patriots. Ask Mac Jones what his 40 time is when he tracks that ball down. So that's not the issue. And look, would he do that? And this, Jenna, to our next point about Hyde Poyer and his contract is like, all right, the draft's coming up on Tuesday. Let's hypothetically say, or Thursday, let's hypothetically say he's fallen and you got a chance. Mm-hmm. It's in Beane's mind. He would never say it. No one else would say it. It's in his mind to say, if I have a shot, and look, I'm talking about this like I think he loves Kyle Hamilton. He wouldn't tell us one way or the other. I guess we'd find out. But my point is, why would you make this decision now? Because the draft is now. If Jordan Poyer's agent would have come out 3 weeks from now saying this, it might be different. But right now, it's there. You'll probably get picked 7th by the Giants, and it'll be done anyhow. But I'm telling you, if he slips, I love that kind of move for them.
Yeah. No, I think that kind of shows like the best available. And with this team, maybe there's needs that weren't projected as needs even a month ago. And just the way the NFL works, things have changed. But I mean, the Poyer situation is interesting. Now, remind me, guys, has a Bills player done this under McDermott? I was trying to think of it.
I don't think they've had a contract issue. Dan, I'm trying to remember. Is there anybody who it's not even coming.
McCoy.
There's been guys coming. I don't think did McCoy ever do that?
I don't think so.
No, I think they just let him go at the end of his deal.
Yeah.
They let him go at the end. That was right.
That was at training camp,
right? Was it training camp? You're right. Training
he didn't
camp.
make the roster, yeah.
But it's a little different.
Yeah. The tough thing with Poyer, and like I said, I agree, and I think he has all the right to ask for more money. This is his shot to strike while the iron's hot for him. The tricky situation here is the timing, because I'm sure, and Beane pointed out yesterday, we talked about it in Mike and I's blog that we put up, Beane made a point to say other players are also asking for more money, or agents have also come to him saying, hey, what are you thinking about my guy's deal? When are we getting one done? So I agree with all of that. The tough thing is that this is right before the draft. So while Beane can say to other guys, hey, let's get through the draft and then we'll talk before camp, right? That's what we'll do. And you say, yeah, no problem. Let's see how the pieces fall. Like, shit, like that's not the necessarily, like Beane will send the message to Drew Rosenhaus and Poyer by what he does in the draft. Because I don't think Beane can let this sit. I don't think he can move up and trade Hamilton and then be like, yeah, so Jordan, like what deal do you want to get done now? It's like, well, we've made up our mind. And that was the point of our blog that we had up yesterday, was like decisions need to be made. And this isn't like, we'll revisit this in a month. Like this has to be done. I think if a deal gets done with Poyer, it gets done this week, because otherwise you're in a very tough spot that the Bills then kind of feel handcuffed, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think it has to get done this week. I think if BEANE has decided in his mind or goes in the draft saying, look, I like Dax Hill. It's another guy I like out of Michigan. He can play multiple positions, multiple spots in the secondary. Not going to cost, not the NBA positionless basketball. There's still play your positions in the NFL, but he has a skill set that you could get him on the field with those safeties, at least in my opinion, looking at it. No, Dan, I don't think he has to make the Poyer. In his mind, he may be saying, hey, look, Jordan Poyer is an outstanding player. We're not talking about Jordan Poyer on the field this year, who will be still great for this team. Talking about them saying, and like we said, Poyer should want a new deal. He's in the last year. But Dan, you mentioned other guys. So who are we talking about here? Tremaine Edmonds, right? We're talking about, I mean, we don't know if his agent's called, but my guess is, come on, of course he is in the final year of his deal. Dawson Knox, right? When's my deal getting done, right? Coming into final year, guys that weren't first round draft picks. So, but those guys, I think, we sort of agree, I think Knox is a guy they're going to re-sign. I mean, he just knows that you can get that deal done. I don't think they're drafting a tight end in the first or second round. But Jenna made the point about linebacker and sort of sending a message, not even sending a message, preparing for what's coming next. But safety, Dan, if he's got his mind set up, if I get one of these guys, I'm going to say this bluntly, if I get one of these top guys at safety, I'm moving on from Jordan Poyer.
Agreed.
Yeah.
He can decide that after the draft.
Yeah. I don't think you need to do that. I mean, there's not that even that much time. I feel like what he does in the draft will dictate what he does with Jordan Poyer.
Yes. So that's why he doesn't have to. It's a nice backup plan to say one of your team leaders, all pro guy, you could re-sign at a good number and have him stay. Now that's provided they come to a number that the two sides would agree on.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I feel like by next Sunday, we'll sit there and go, either they're going to work a deal out with Poyer or they're not. By Sunday, by the time everything's all wrapped up in Vegas and the Bills' war room door closes.
Yeah, I think that
they will, let me tell you something.
Have a good indication.
Yes, but let me tell you this. If they haven't drafted a safety high, and there's no guy, I mean, this is no disrespect to Jaquan Johnson, whatever, but you're not, if you're taking Jordan Poyer off the field, it better be for a guy that you think is a stud and you're putting him right in there. It's not for a guy who's been on your roster, gets snaps, and looks like he could be a player.
Yeah.
It's for that. So you're right. By then, but look, it's still a guy in his 30s. It's funny. I'll make an Eagles point here, but the guy who just retired, Malcolm Jenkins, great safety, was with the Saints. They won a Super Bowl, came to the Eagles. They won a Super Bowl. And then at a certain point, they let him walk. And he went to New Orleans and still played really well. And the Eagles never really replaced him. So it's like you can do the right financial thing
and get caught with your pants down
and get caught. Right. So you better have the right guy to replace him because those kind of guys are incredibly valuable to a team. Somebody's listening to this, Jen, and thinking we're pushing Poyer out the door. I think Poyer's outstanding and other teams would want him, but Dan, at the right money, they got to make that call.
Yep. That's the thing is you can't pay everyone. And that's the tricky situation is how do you approach that?
Dan, can you pay everyone?
Okay. Daniel. Oh my God. Triggered.
What?
No. I'm saying you can't pay everyone because
you don't want to pay everyone.
Exactly.
Right.
Because maybe it's not opportunistic to pay the people. So you can use the salary cap as a nice little excuse because in the words of Dan Fates, the salary cap is not real. All right, Dan.
Not real.
The floor is yours.
Well, one, it was, first of all, let's just think about back to 3-4 weeks ago when we thought they weren't in on Chandler Jones because we didn't think there'd be enough money. And then later in the day, they signed Von Miller to a massive contract. And we're like, well, where was all this money? Like, what? And now I'm sitting here, and as I have been team wide receiver on this draft the entire time, thinking about it, Deebo Samuel has now requested a trade out of the 49ers. What, Jenna?
No, you have so many hills you want to die on.
Yeah, that's called takes. They're hot. And
they're hot,
you
they're
step in it.
fresh.
Yep. And
Okay,
I said I would give up this year's first and next year's first for Deebo Samuel. And I had so many people in my mentions on Twitter saying, you can't pay him, Dan, but the salary cap, he wants a new contract, Dan. You can't pay him. Yes, you can. Like, I heard that same thing before Von Miller, and they signed Von Miller. And, like, guess what? The salary cap, if you think the salary cap is real, then explain to me how the Rams have done all these signs and trades and done all of that and found a way to pay Matt Stafford and Jalen Ramsey and Odell Beckham Jr. and Robert Woods and all these guys they have paid and Aaron Donald. Like, the list goes on, and you're sitting there going, well, how does that happen? And then you go on and look at what the Bucks have done.
Hold on. You're saying all those guys, you're right. And then they turn around and sign Bobby Wagner. It's like, oh yeah, we got some money here. You know how they're paying? The Bills will pay all these guys? They're getting that big check from Kathy Hochul. They're going to use it early. She's sending them $600 million. They're going to spend it.
And I hate to break it to people. And I know this seems very unrealistic for people to understand, because minus another pandemic hitting the NFL or the world, the NFL salary cap is going to skyrocket massively. So much, guys. So the fact that the money is well, we're tight against the cap this year. It's yeah, just wait. I don't know what you want me to say. Just wait. And so when I brought up Deebo Samuel, who I think would be just an unreal piece to add to this Bills offense. And I hate it when I hear, oh, he'd be a great piece in the Packers offense. And, oh, the Chiefs could be in on Deebo Samuel. Wouldn't that be great? It's why is nobody talking about the Bills adding these same pieces? And for everybody that talks about it, the salary cap, the way that you can move money around, the way that you can do bonuses and incentives and do guaranteed money, the way that you can manipulate it. Yes, I get it. People are going to say, sorry, it's a joke when I say the salary cap isn't real. The salary cap is very easy to manipulate if you know what you're doing. And that is what teams have started to learn and do. The salary cap is an excuse for bad teams and bad GMs to say, hey, we can't sign these guys because there's just no money. There is money. Somebody was telling me the Saints. Oh, the Saints, they couldn't even sign their all-pro left tackle, Terran Armstead. And he went to the Miami Dolphins. They could have signed him. They could have signed him. They didn't want to. And that is the difference. When the Bills will not re-sign Tremaine Edmonds, and they'll say, there's just not enough money. It's the salary cap. No, you could get a deal done. They just don't want to. And I think that is a big difference, where some people are going, well, the salary cap, you're handcuffed by the salary cap. It's not real. You can work around it.
I think the salary cap can either be, I think it's used, how do I want to phrase this? It's used as a reason, but really it's an excuse. If you want to sign a player, you will find the money. And Deebo Samuel in the Bills offense would be electric. But I think it's one of those things that it is a good excuse. And like you said, Dan, the salary cap.
That's a lame excuse. It's a lame excuse for bad teams.
Hey, let me tell you something.
No, but I think you can use it when you need to.
Okay.
With Tremaine Edmonds, I think you would say, you know what, we just didn't have the room in the salary cap.
There is a certain amount of money that a team is going to spend. They have sort of their own salary cap. Terry Pagula spends a lot, but he doesn't, maybe there's a point. And you do need to allocate those resources. Whether Dan's talking about the overall cap that you can manipulate, but you can't, it's just not unlimited that you can just keep doing it. So if you're the Bills, look, I'd love to see Deebo Samuel in that offense. Come on, right? But at the same time, you say to yourself, we do have Diggs, we do have Davis, we do have a high draft pick. I'm going to get him going. We do have a high draft pick. You could maybe use those resources at other positions, like Von Miller, they did, because that was a big need on this team. A dynamic defensive player who can get to the quarterback in the big moments. So when you take a step back at the offseason, Dan made the point. You signed Diggs and you got Von Miller. That is a huge offseason in that way for them, as opposed to reaching out and grabbing somebody. Now, go get a corner and a wide receiver, and with Josh Allen at quarterback, you're in pretty good shape. But there's always going to be something else down the line. And like you said, it's a reason and an excuse, I guess.
As long as the Pagulas are willing to keep opening up their pocketbooks and keep spending money. Like you can get a lot of stuff done. Like we always laugh. Like Mike made the example when we were talking about it yesterday. Like the Eagles, it's like, oh my gosh, they have all now. Granted, dead money on the cap is not good. That's money that is very tough to move around.
It is, but you can do it. There, this is why they give them June 1st designations. You push it into the next year. You sign the next guy. Like again, first of all, Carson Wentz alone should have destroyed 3 teams cap space.
And it hasn't.
And it really hasn't happened.
So don't sit here and tell me that when Carson Wentz should be, like Mike said, crippling 3-team salary cap. If it was this real finite absolute thing, it would happen. It doesn't. And guess what? We're doing this podcast and the Bills signed another player. How? Because they can. And they can sign more players if they want. And if they want to sign Jordan Poyer to an extension, they can figure out a way to get it done. And then people go, well, how is that money? Where's I don't know. Don't ask me. And then everybody's going, well, if you would trade all your picks and sign all these players, Dan, that's why you're not a GM. You're right. I have a journalism degree from a state school of New York. Okay. I went to Beardonia, and you're going to tell me I'd make a bad NFL GM. You're probably right. But I know that you can sign players if you want to, because the salary cap is be able to be manipulated, and Brandon Beane is really good at it. He has done that since the time he got there. He got out of some bad, large deals and has signed players to long-term deals that seem team-friendly, that have, escape routes that you can pull the carpet out or pull the rug out and leave.
Pull the ripcord,
I
will say to everyone that's wondering, this is not a bit. This is who Dan Fates is.
None of it are bits.
I know. I just want everyone to realize, this is exactly who Dan is, and he will get on the soapbox in the sports.
Tell me you don't know tell me you don't know about the salary cap by telling me you don't know about salary cap. It's not real. I don't know what you want me to say. You don't get it. You don't get it. And I've talked to other people. This isn't just my take. Google the salary cap is a myth, and you will find a bunch of articles that are written by smarter people.
You know what it is? You know what it is? It's like you got a credit card balance, but you have 3 other cards that you can just keep.
Oh, I know that life.
You keep putting them on those. You transfer the balance with 0 interest for 3 months, and you're moving that down the line, and you're just waiting, Dan, and waiting for that big Buffalo Plus bonus to come through. You can get that all taken care of.
Find us on Venmo.
Again, when people say it can't be done, then how did the Rams do it? Then how did the Bucks do it? And guess what? If the Bucks wanted to sign Deebo Samuel tomorrow and trade for him, they could, and they would do it. And
oh, sorry. No, you know what I found interesting was last night I was just looking at the odds of what team was expected to land Deebo, and the Bills weren't even on the list. There was 12 teams listed.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had the Bills.
Right where Beane is.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had the Bills on that list.
I don't know. I thought it was surprising.
Well,
maybe because I know Brandon Beane and what he, and but we know his tendencies and things like that.
But they just signed Diggs to a big deal. Right. Yeah. It is funny that I saw the Chiefs. I'm thinking about the Chiefs, drafting a guy, but they just made a decision to not pay Tyreek Hill.
Correct.
And now Deebo is just, I just love the way he plays. Now, there are some downsides to Deebo. His physical play is taxing. He's not, man, you want to talk about improving the run after catch?
Yeah.
Number 1 in the league since 2019.
Right.
Josh Allen was last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's the kind of game he plays. But, we're saying this just to say, look, if you're a Bills fan, you're hoping, go ahead, sign with Green Bay. Go ahead, sign with, the Giants, whoever. It doesn't, you're just saying that. Just keep him out. I'll tell you who's thrilled right now is the Rams.
Yes.
Right? The Seahawks, the Cardinals. Anybody's got to go against that guy.
The thing is, too, I had to go. The fact that if Deebo goes somewhere, that will also help the Bills in my case of hopefully it's a team that wanted to draft a wide receiver, and hopefully that would fall another wide receiver. Because like I said, we have talked about there could be 3, 4, 5 wide receivers that are already off the board by the time the Bills are on the clock at 25. So like I said, if the Jets made a play for Debo, then like that would take them that could take them out of a wide receiver at what are they at? 5 and
picks,
10?
right?
Yeah, 5 and 10, something like that. So yeah, it's interesting. And I just go back to this, and this isn't going to turn into a Gabe Davis bit.
Okay.
But compared to other teams, Diggs and Gabe Davis, I don't think is as dynamic of a duo in the NFL as some people may in Western New York think. I personally, and I'll get roasted for this, and that's fine, I don't think he's a top 10 duo. I don't think they're a top 10 duo in the league. And I think
that's fair. Now, because we're going based on, look, Gabe's last game was unreal. Like,
phenomenal.
If he's doing that, not 4 touchdowns and 200 plus yards, but if he's that kind of production in relative terms, you can start projecting him much higher. And obviously, with some changes to the offense, he would be more of a target. I think he's a really good player. But
I agree.
At the moment, I'm with you. I see them right around that 10 to 15 level. And
because I don't think
great.
Gabe Davis is a top 30 wide receiver in the NFL
Not
yet.
Certainly. And does he have the potential? Maybe, but
I just look at how Brandon Beane was talking about Gabe Davis, and look, okay, Dan's leaving. I mean, Mike, you were there at the press conference. Like, you even tweeted out, people should hope to have someone talk about them the way Beane talks about.
Yeah,
Davis.
I mean, he went on and on. But again, you can love the player, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't make the guy a star or a top tier. You cannot deny this about Gabe. He's a worker. He's talented. Can he improve? Absolutely. Be more consistent. Put up bigger numbers. I'm not saying Dawson Knox is an all-pro and he's great, but he certainly has the physical tools to be really good, improved in a lot of areas, and became better. It becomes about what do the great ones do? They're consistent. Like, you just pencil in guys for minimum 5 catches, 65 yards, and then let's go from there. Gabe hasn't been that guy yet. He did have, the Colts game. He made big plays, and certainly the Chiefs game. But you'd need to see that more often. We could be sitting there at midseason next year going, wow, Davis has really stepped up.
That's the thing I think of. Like, he hasn't done that yet, but I firmly believe he can and he will.
He can. Will is the question. Yeah. I
personally believe, I don't know if that's a deep cut, if people will get that reference, but no, I think that I see that potential. And Dan, I don't think Dan does, which that's okay. But I just think
I am much more lukewarm on Gabe Davis than so many other people are. And he had 35 catches last season.
Oh, we're going to do, okay.
Josh
Allen didn't break 300 yards until his 3rd season.
Okay, who are his wide receivers? Like, are we going to play that game? I'm talking about Gabe Davis. Like, what has it been about Josh Allen? Like, everybody thinks
I'm just saying.
Josh has thrown for 4,000 yards the last 2 seasons, and Gabe has caught like 60 passes. That's what I'm saying. Is that like Josh at the time where you're talking about 300 yards, he didn't have weapons or the offense to throw that. Gabe Davis for 2 years has been in a high-powered offense and caught 35 passes last year. And for people to say, well, his number wasn't called upon. Correct. But there's a reason that he wasn't called upon as much. And if you want to disagree with that, that's fine. But I will let the people that run and coach NFL football make those decisions. I won't do it from a basement.
Yeah. Well, there is something that could be said. For all we know, they're sitting in their off-season meetings going, Gabe should have been more part of the offense earlier.
Yeah,
they could be saying that. They're the ones looking at every ounce of the tape and seeing it that way. And he certainly, when his number was called in Kansas City, he was incredible. So maybe that's the jump start. If you remember Josh Allen's last game against Miami that year, he was great in the final game, and it was sort of a springboard to what he could be because he hadn't been putting up the numbers. And I'm not saying, again, I still think they're taking a wide receiver somewhere very early in this draft. Yeah. I'd say, well, I'll put it this way. In my opinion, they are absolutely taking a wide receiver before Saturday. Yes. Somewhere in those first 3 rounds, they're taking a wide receiver.
And I don't want this to turn into a Dan thinks Gabe Davis sucks podcast. That is not what I'm trying to say.
You're not. And we're just talking about if you're drafting Chris Olave or you're drafting Jameson Williams, your hope is that guy is going to be the star kind of guy.
A Justin Jefferson. You're hoping that these a Jamar Chase.
And hey, look, but I'll tell you what, if Gabe Davis becomes that guy and you have another one,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Yep. I just look at the way Beane talked about him, and I know that with other players who are incredibly talented, even like you mentioned Dawson Knox, like Beane would say like, there's issues, there's things we need to work on. Whereas I feel like with Gabe Davis, he's just had glowing remarks.
Jenna, I wanted to play the Titanic music over that. I mean, it was like,
that's the thing. You don't hear those guys talk like that very often.
Yeah.
So I just that piques my interest.
It's also maybe, you know,
I've also always thought Gabe Davis could be an awesome player. So maybe it's incredibly biased in my part as well.
But
I hope I'm right.
Devin Singletary could rush for 3,000 yards next year. It could happen.
I did not say that. I did not. See, why do you got to do that?
See?
Why do you have to do that? I never said that.
Hey, Dan,
now you're putting words in my mouth. So
Jenna's got that microphone now. Do not mess with her.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I
bet you everybody's gonna. I can't wait to see the shape that
you're
Devin
going to be
Singletary comes back in.
absolutely the villain of this. You're the villain of this podcast.
What else is new?
Excuse me. Zach Moss is going to come in the best shape of his life.
Yeah, you're right. It's actually Zach Moss.
Jenna, I got 3 days in Vegas with him on this.
Oh my! Well, he's going to be at the blackjack table. So
poker.
Oh, poker. Oh my bad. You won't mix it up.
We'll be everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You're gonna have to drag Dan out of Vegas.
Probably.
He can't even go. It's supposed to be 95 degrees. I don't think you can go hoodie sport coat outside.
Nope.
That's true.
Nope.
Wow.
But keep in mind.
No, I know what the look is. Actually, you told us what the look
is.
is.
They crank up the AC in the casino. So
yeah, it's the worst.
Pumping oxygen.
That's it.
Oh, man.
Keep you going.
I will say time doesn't exist in Vegas. It's just
72 hours, Mike. It'll be perfect.
That is,
man.
That
moment when we're getting on the red eye coming home is going to be something to see. After the Bills, we're gonna fly home with Kyle Hamilton after the draft. We're gonna bring him back to Orchard Park
after he gets off the boat.
A lot of fun.
That's right.
Yeah, in Vegas. All right. Let's wrap. This has been a highly contentious Buffalo Plus podcast. Thank you for listening.
You should have seen what we were talking about before we were recording.
Oh my God.
Jenna was the one more fired up than anybody.
This mic is nice, but we were having some technical issues and
got them fixed.
We need an IT support person on retainer for Jenna. That's all we need. You would think that Mike wouldn't know anything about IT. He's giving Jenna directions. He's giving Jenna tips.
It's not good. I am not dismissing that. Like, I'm terrible with technology.
Jenna needs a full-time IT person and a tow truck following her around all day.
You know what? I actually got in my car this morning and I said, we're done. I was like, you know what? We've had a
Sorry.
It's taken a lot to get to that point. It's taken 12 years to get to that point, but I now feel like we're coming to an end.
Wow.
Yeah. That's even bigger than the
We're having a ceremony when that thing goes.
Oh, absolutely. The Blueberry has been my life. It's the longest relationship of my life.
It went south about 6 years ago.
Yeah. Well, they usually do. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Buffalo Plus podcast. Please be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Dan and Mike will be out in Vegas. I'll be holding it down in the studio. We have a special show. Mike, why don't you tell them about it?
Yep, 7:30, leading right up to the draft. It's going to be on ABC and ESPN, several NFL Network. But 7:30 to 8, Dan and I live in Vegas. Jenna breaking it down in the studio. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can check it out right here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.
Awesome. For Dan and Mike, I'm Jenna. We will see you next week as we get ready for the Buffalo Plus draft show live from Vegas.